So good morning to everybody, and especially if it's your first time, thank you for joining us, and we promise to make it valuable. So, team on this side this morning, maybe we can kick off with the introduction of who's here. Let's quickly get there. Fantastic. So on our side this morning, my name is Yaku. I should have probably done that first. Yaku Marquardt, I look after the team here at Element 8. We are very excited to have ROWAN RAY with us. ROWAN is with AB INBEV, tech supply specialist. ROWAN, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. I look more handsome in that picture.
That's a very dashing photograph. We look forward to chatting with you a little bit more about data, the value of data, and some of the approaches that you have at AB INBEV. So thank you for joining us. Then, of course, Lenny, you know Lenny Smit. Lenny looks after our customer success team. And then we have Tabelo Masedi, also on our customer success team. And sitting next to me is Laura Lee. It feels strange calling you Laura Lee.
Yeah.
Laura Stradom, also part of our customer success team. So this is who's with you today. And we're going to share the load in terms of who talks through what with you this morning. The agenda for today is we'll kick it off as always with our change makers, or the people that are really the heroes in our community and our story, and give you an update in terms of certifications, new partners, and just new members of our community. Then we're going to talk through data to value, which is our conversation with ROWAN. Then we probably thought we'd do it a little bit differently this time in terms of how we present what's new and updates, because it could be quite overwhelming, and you see different updates and links and shares, and we thought we'd do it per flow, ignition, and canary historian category today, as opposed to throwing it all together under one enablement slide. And hopefully that'll make it a little bit easier for you to get updates depending on the solution that you're interested in. And then we close it off with what you can look forward to over the next month or next 60 days or so, and anything else that's most important to you. So really the message is, if there's 1 hour that you can spend with us or spend on watching something that we've produced or shared over the last little while, this should be that 1 hour. All right. So some of the new partners that we have on board, I think we shared last time in the previous CCL that Afrilec obtained their gold certification. Very exciting that they've also in the meantime achieved their IIoT certification, which is done through Cirrus Link, which is a fairly new certification. It's quite a nice and exciting one, very, very useful and informative one to have. And they have also very recently certified on CEPAsoft recipe changeover module certification. So that makes Afrilec our second CEPAsoft MES certified system integrator. So that's a really good achievement. I know the team from Afrilec has put a lot of work and time into that one. CSS up here in Gauteng and down at the coast, Peter Venter and the team, they are obviously ignition certified and flow certified. They add the Canary certification to their portfolio or to the team. I think we had 3 people certify on Canary
with the Durban training
from CSS. So that's a really good achievement for Peter and the team, completing their trifecta of certifications. And then we have new ignition certified registered integrators in RBE Automation. Welcome to the team from RBE Automation based in Tzaneen. Exciting to have somebody on board from that side of the world. And we have also Dealtron based out in the West Rand, I think. Yeah. Peter and his team out in the West Rand. So really exciting to get new registered SIs on board for ignition. So welcome to you as well. Just in terms of new customer success, a couple of the stories that we can share, that we would like to share, just to highlight a few. VC Praxis did an incredible, very, very exciting to see some MQTT stories and applications coming through. VC Praxis has done some really good work with Zantec. They do the oxygen emergency care gas solutions at various hospitals. Very, very nice remote solution MQTT story from VC Praxis. If you're interested in that, there's a couple of photos on some of the work done there. Very, very, very tidy solution there. Intake, also at the same time, MQTT solution. MQTT and Edge, remote monitoring and bringing the data on board, and that was done through for Bergrivier Municipality in the Western Cape. Also lovely to see another MQTT solution over there. Advances for Kenmara Resources, that was an ignition specific application that Ram and the team are building out for them over there. And they've also extended some of the flow use for CCBA across some of the African sites outside of South African view. And then interesting one for us, very exciting for the team at SGS. SGS, they of course do some of the APC solutions, Mineral Services APC, Advanced Process Control Solutions, and they are using Ignition as a front end for that solution for Polyas, who's I think one of the biggest gold producers, or Russian-based gold producers in the world. So we're very keen to do a site visit in Russia. But really, really good work that the SGS team is doing over there, so well done for that. And then we have Venic, who's really do a lot of work in the water space. Also, again, linear and edge application for water chem mining. So we definitely see a lot of the edge MQTT applications coming through.
100%.
Which is, I think, where the trend is, and that's where.
Definitely. Now, we'll share the links, obviously, for the IoT certification a little bit later, but I think that's probably one of the key takeaways is to register and see if you can get your IoT badge. We definitely see that it's becoming, a lot of these applications on the screen right here is using that, so good to get that badge under your belt as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and again, congratulations to everybody on here. It's nice to see the three certification logos for a couple of the partners, as well as some new partners. Look forward to working with you all. All right, so we wanted to, we asked Rowan a couple of weeks ago, or not a couple of weeks ago, probably a couple of months ago, and we said, Rowan, we would like to chat with you about the story in terms of your journey with, I don't think we knew what we called it back then, but data to value. That was the message that we wanted. And we would like you to share some of your thoughts and some of the steps that you did and went through and your approach, and share all of that with us. But you've got 25 minutes.
Go. Well, so thanks a lot, Jack. We are.
So I think you've been able to, as we progress through the chats and the conversation, I think you've been able to encapsulate or at least summarize that in a couple of key thoughts.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks, Jackie. Thanks, Danny. Thanks, team, for having me here. So, yeah, I wanted to just, touch on how we extracted, value out of the data that we obviously have plenty of across our African landscape, and obviously touch on how we utilized Flow to do that. But obviously, this is not a session to punt Flow. This is just a session around good practices and how the decision making process we went through, and then I'll touch on the actual solution that we implemented. But yeah, I think the first thing that I wanted to highlight, right, and is data is valuable without a doubt, but is all data valuable? I think with a lot of the chat, a lot of the big words coming out of industry, 4.0 is okay, AI, machine learning, and data lake. Okay, so just the message coming from a lot of your suppliers is just throw all your data, whatever data it is, don't matter what it is, just chuck it into a data lake, and somehow you're going to get some value out of it, right? We promise you 20% improvement in your efficiencies or whatever it happens to be. And I think we must just temper that excitement a little bit, because without a doubt there's value there, but I think when you throw too much data at something, if you don't understand your problem, don't understand your process, which we'll get to now, you just cloud the issue. You don't know what you're looking at, and it's throwing out, the Hail Mary in football. You just toss it down the pitch and hope that someone catches it and someone gives you some value. And it just ends up chewing up resources, so time and money. And it's just, I think that's my first thing. That's one of the big decisions.
I like that, because a couple of years ago, the message was we can't access all our data.
Yep.
And I think now, again, we often say with the advent of the cheap sensors and devices and the availability, now that we have that access, let's just get all of it, regardless of whether there's context or an understanding of what this value is that I'm looking at, but let's just get all of it and throw it in one place.
I think we speak about it a lot in our podcast sessions, Yaku, that there's this notion that 100% the new industry 4.0 is making it easier, right? The technology is becoming easier for us to make the data available. But we must be very careful to move the problem just from one layer to the other layer. 100%.
Spot on.
Take
Spot on.
all that data that's currently on your plant layer, just put it in the cloud.
Yeah.
Very often there's no context related to it. Someone needs to sift through that data, make all the changes. You're just moving the problem from your OT layer to your IT layer. And that's a big thing that people need to understand, is to fix that data layer already with the right context and the knowledge of the process.
But this is the starting point. I mean, this is the genesis thought or idea. Is all of it what you need, and is it valuable?
Yeah, 100%. And that's where, so our step one, I suppose, what I'd advise is know your problem and know your process, all right? The process and knowledge thereof. So you need to know your inputs and outputs to your process. You need to know what what is the process. I suppose when I put these slides together, I was thinking, because I come from a brewery, let's talk about like your brew house process, right? You're going to put some malt in, you're going to put some adjunct in, and whatever it happens to be, some water. And, what are your outputs? Your outputs, then you can get some sweet wort, that you can ferment and get some beer out of. But if you don't know what influences the outputs, what do you really, which leads me up to my next point, is what are you trying to solve? What are you trying to improve? All right. What are you, if you don't know what you're trying to improve, if you don't know what you're trying to eradicate, and you don't know roughly where to look. I mean, you've got subject matter experts in brewing. You've got subject matter experts everywhere in your business, right? If you don't, then what are your overheads? What are you paying people for, right? Okay, they should know their person. They should be good at it. But I think with the Industry 4.0 revolution, sort of like to what you were saying, it's like people are trying to outsource their problem, right? I'm just going to check my data there, and someone else will look at it for me and tell me what my issues are. If you try and do that, you're going to end up in trouble, because it means that you as a business aren't owning your problem. You're just outsourcing it, and you're just hoping that the bulk data is going to get you that. So I think that's what I wanted to emphasize here, is you need to know your problem and you need to know your process. Okay. What I'll get to in our use case was the process. What we wanted to try and improve was our daily routine. And so it doesn't need to be like a physical process. It can be just your daily routines. How do you make them more effective? How do you put the right data in front of the people so that they, as individuals and as resources to the business, become better utilized? I think that's the key thing. So the second thing I wanted to talk about is standardization, and how standardization is the key, right? So from a technological viewpoint, standardization is critical to your success, right? Standardize on a philosophy and a universally accepted protocol, not the supplier. And I think that's also where, and I'll be the first to admit that, I think where, as the old SAB, if you look at the products that we use, you could actually say that we're probably tied to a supplier, but we are trying really hard to try and change that concept around and say, what are we getting from, what do we want to, as an end goal, as a deliverable, and choose the philosophy. So as an example, we standardized around our control modules, right? And control modules, for anyone who knows control modules, equipment modules, batch processes, S88. We wanted to design control modules that were mutually exclusive from the hardware in which they were applied. So we have different PLCs throughout our breweries, and Bradley, Schneider's, Siemens. But the standardization of the control module was really around its design and functionality that we wanted. So that's what I'm trying to get to. The philosophy is, what functionality do you want out of something? Forget about where you're going to apply it, and just choose a philosophy.
And this is what's going to help you scale.
100%, exactly, yeah. You want to be able to scale quickly, and if your philosophy is right, and you find that your supplier or your hardware that you're using, whatever it happens to be, your software, your tools, are not giving you that, remove yourself from them and keep your standardization on your philosophy. I also talked about universally accepted protocols, and this brings back to the things you highlighted in your change makers. MQTT. It's a universally accepted protocol. Likewise with OPC UA. Try as a business, as a company, to get aligned to those, okay? Because if you are aligned to those are philosophies, the protocols. Those are not suppliers, okay? And I think that's a key one that I wanted to raise. And the last point is where within your vertical data stream we standardize. Obviously, have pros and cons, okay?
Okay.
As SAB, we chose to standardize it as low down as we could, right?
As low as possible.
We were lucky. We had very skilled resources, control engineers at the site and everything that really bought into the concept and really were good enough in their skills to execute. But when you try and standardize a low down, it's a lot of effort, eh? That's a lot of effort because you've got so much down there.
Yes, it is a lot of effort, but if you don't standardize low down, we talk about it, try and standardize as low down to the edge as possible, because if you don't standardize there, you need to standardize just the layer above it. So somewhere you're going to need to do the work.
Exactly.
And the problem is the further decoupled you are from the edge, you know, the OT guy knows the knowledge of the sensor, the scaling, the range, all of that. The further you move up the information chain into the IT space, now it's an IT guy.
Yes, correct.
Now someone needs to tell him that, what's the range, exactly. So the lower down you can standardize, moving that data up becomes then very simple and much easier.
You're 100% right. And so I don't know how many secrets I'm allowed to give away, but that's one of our biggest issues. So when we became AB InBev and we really started, focusing on the different zones, obviously North America, Middle America, all the rest of it. The zones. You have different standardization every single zone, but we want a global company. So you need to have apples for apples that the directors are looking at, right? So now, and that's what you're saying, is now, how do you standardize at that layer? Where do you standardize? You can't force every single brewery around the whole world to use the same control modules. That's just a task beyond, it's huge. So then you try and standardize at the level that you're talking about, but that's difficult because now how do you get data from there to there? Do you use SQL extractions? Do you use OPC or MQTT stuff? Do you use file share systems? And you're right. Then you just shift the problem up to a level that is probably not where you should be standardizing. But unfortunately, in big companies, you're faced with those tough decisions. And I think we're trying hard now to try and standardize. And I know that the North America zone is also talking a lot about flow as an example. Once again, I'm not punting flow, but they're talking about using flow for a similar thing that we're trying to do. And that also makes it a lot nicer because now you have all your data kept in the same sort of database, the same structure.
This universally understood and familiar way of reading reports, seeing KPIs.
Exactly. And you all speak the same language, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So I think that's key, is standardization, right?
Very good point.
So step two, I know I've harped on about it, but standardization, it's simple, right? Okay, a lot of people talk about it, but a lot of us don't really get it right. So I think the key thing is, if you're going to standardize with a deliverable in mind, and that deliverable is typically consistency around, what you're delivering. Either it's function or it's data, structure, whatever it is. Philosophy and protocol, not supplier. So that I spoke about, right?
Yeah.
And where we standardize is pros and cons, which is also what I spoke about. Okay, lower levels better, but requires more partnering, suppliers, and all the rest. And higher up is more manageable, but sometimes you're going to lose your value because the people you're dealing with don't understand the data really. Okay, so that's step two. And then I thought, so now I'll start leading to really where we've implemented the solution we implemented, right? Okay, which was vertical data migration. So just a little bit of background for those people who weren't able to watch the Element 8 conference last year, right? But SAB, we've got quite a few breweries throughout Africa. We've got like 28, 29 breweries somewhere there, right?
A lot of acquisition sites as well.
100%, yeah, for sure. Okay, and a lot of new builds as well that we've done. But the old SAB never really focused on the rest of Africa. It was always focused around South Africa. So you go to South African breweries and you'll find a lot of standardization and a lot of people that speak the same language and use the same tools and all the rest. But we didn't, and this is an indictment on us.
Quite a strong tribal knowledge, tribal understanding of
100%.
how things work and how they,
Exactly. And it was so easy. You could take a control engineer from one plant, pop him down there, and you're still running. Okay, maybe a little bit of, maybe you need to get used to coding in Schneider, but the concepts are the same. Once again, standardization around concept and philosophy. But an indictment on us is that we didn't concentrate on the rest of Africa, right? We really neglected them, I hate to say, and we're trying hard to bring it back. But one of the big things that we found was that there isn't standardization throughout the rest of Africa, right? And so with a big thing we wanted to try and improve, and once again I speak to the processes, we wanted to make sure that the daily routines, which is AB InBev principles, VPO principles, best practices and stuff that you live by, that they were being applied correctly and as effectively as possible. And for that, we decided that we needed some form of a dashboard that could be in every single meeting, whether it's energy and fluids meetings, plant meetings, maintenance, brewing, packaging, whatever it is. You could look at the same type of dashboard, and importantly, you could have your key KPIs, which we all know as an upper level business decision. They give you value, they drive efficiencies. So I think that's what I wanted to point out here. Know your problem: lack of standardization reporting across Africa. There was no single point of truth, and data got corrupted very often because there's Excels floating around everywhere.
Yep.
I'm sure you've heard a lot about that.
That's quite common, yeah.
Yeah, quite common, right? Okay. The need to offer a simple, effective tool to all breweries in order to get data in the same format and quickly. And then what data was necessary is the fundamental plant efficiency data that speaks to work routines and their efficacy.
Yep.
Data which would give upper level management. This is also an important one. Is upper level management needs to be able to see data rapidly. And that's also, you'll see, I'll allude to that now, well, we get to it now, but if upper level management don't know how the plant is doing right now, how do you make decisions? Where do you put your efforts and your resources? So step 3, I suppose, is flow and standardization, at least at a reporting level. So the phase 1 was flow instance was created at each plant, right? So standardization of reporting there. And the reporting level was chosen because we just unfortunately couldn't shift down any lower. We couldn't standardize in PLCs.
Just because of the different variety of
exactly.
standards, protocols, hardware, systems.
Correct. And typically within the African realm, their philosophy is, or our philosophy, sorry, not there, we are all one now. Okay, so our philosophy in Africa at the time was let's get an OEM like a Crohn's or a KHS who would do lines, or Waterloo or Talbot who do BTS plants, and we would get them in. They would set up the whole thing, but they apply their standard, right? And they leave. Yeah. And then you're left with a system which is completely different to this one or that one or that one. It works perfectly, but they're very, disparate systems, right? And so it was too much effort to try and standardize at that coding level. Yeah. So we shifted one up and said, well, let's at least standardize at the reporting layer, right?
Cool. Then I suppose the tool in this case, which is Flow, the software in this case, which is Flow, made it possible to do that. At least there wasn't any specific requirement around any proprietary anything for Flow to be able to do that.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm glad you pointed that. Flow is not, you don't have to have Siemens, you don't have to have this. Flow is, independent of those, and that's what's beautiful. You can pull information into Flow from a variety of sources. SQL databases, manual entry, which a lot of Africa still is. And the idea is that, and the reason we also went with Flow is
manual entry, data entry.
Yeah,
manual of that.
Correct. There's still a lot of data and manual data entry, but our goal throughout Africa is that we want to get the rest of the African breweries connected, similar to how we have our South African breweries, right? Where we have a connected layer and infrastructure that enables you to pull data from that PLC and that PLC and that PLC, stored in a historian. In a historian, okay, it's key. And then it's very easy to change within Flow, to change from manual entry. Just pull it from this data source.
Yeah. And in your case, the historians would be Aviva historian throughout South Africa and other potentially through the rest of Africa.
Yeah, so our legacy system and one which we are happy with at the moment, okay, but is Aviva. Aviva is our historian,
and that's what you standardized.
Yeah, and that's what you standardized on. But as I say, we went for functionality and what we want out of the product, and Flow has a really nice built-in capability to pull data from the Aviva historian. 100%. So that's also why we went with that. But yeah, okay, so the problems that were resolved, okay, our employees are entering data into the same tool on site. So once again, standardization of the tool being used, there's an audit trail of who, when, and why, and there's single source of truth. So you eradicate those issues, okay? There's no more, but Johnny entered it there, and Sipo entered it there, but...
Where's the paper I wrote?
Yeah, where's the paper I wrote? Where's your signature?
I made a note there.
Exactly. And then operators just become more efficient with fewer points of duplicate data capture, okay? So that was step 3 in getting that layout done. But now, there's so much valuable data now that's being entered at the breweries. How do we get that up, right? And we want it quickly. So step 4 was standardization before I get there is standardization of what is being reported, right? So with the tool that we use is Flow, but we needed to standardize around what they were reporting on.
So you mean the KPIs and the calculations on how to derive those KPIs?
Exactly, 100%. So we created a template which spoke to exactly what spoke to KPIs that we know guide efficiency, that we know improve your plant. and that we know you should be discussing your packaging meeting. In your packaging meeting, if you're not talking about packaging beer loss, you're missing a beat there, right? Why are you having a meeting, right? Okay, you need to be, if you're not talking about GLY and LEF and efficiencies, why are you having a meeting? So we standardized around that, because that's another thing we found throughout Africa is there was this, pick and choose of what we feel as a brewery is important. And don't get me wrong, I can still do that, but above and beyond that, you have to talk about this. If you're not talking about this, what are you doing? So we templatized, those KPIs that we wanted people to report.
All the correct standards, templates.
Yep.
100%. Speak to that's your design. So we standardized on metrics and measures. It was department-specific reports, as I was saying. So those are your dashboards. We call them our VPO dashboards, all right? And entry forms, manual entry forms, because as I specified earlier, not all of Africa have databases that store their pack volume and all the rest. Okay, so that was entry forms and manual entry.
And Rowan, by the way, sorry, for, what I didn't mention is if anybody that's online with us, if you have any questions, we'd love to have a conversation with us. If you have any questions, please type your question into the Q&A. We have a comment from Graham on your point about the model. Graham's comment is, in the world of acquisition, it's not often possible to standardize at the edge. So we need to recognize the need to standardize the model, as Rowan and companies have done.
100%, yeah. So you standardize the model at least, And then all brewery instances have the template server configured as a template server, and they pull the templates down, right? So we as a zonal team, and I think it's evident on the picture there, so as a zonal team, we decide upon with our leaders and our department heads what KPIs they want to report on, or what they would like to see reported on at all the breweries. And that also means when they head out to the breweries, for their audits, they know that everyone's looking at the same dashboards, right? And then they can compare apples with apples. Okay, if I'm going to judge you harshly, it's because you're not entering what that plant down the road is entering.
How many breweries in Africa Zone?
28. 28 wow. To 29. It's big. That's big. Yeah, it's very big. Yeah, and that's not including our vertical operations either. So we've got malting plants in Elroad, in Caledon, we've got in Lusaka, in Ginger. So we've got that's another big thing. We're moving across to use this exact model for the malting plants as well, right? Okay. So that's also. And then the problems resolved is obviously, and I alluded to this earlier, but the valuable data for the use cases being reported, right? So I'm not reporting everything. I'm not asking them to enter 400 data points. It's what is valuable and what's going to guide the leadership when they eventually what's going to guide the teams at site to make better decisions. Standardizations of KPIs across Africa, and also the KPI definitions, because that's also what we found is you'll go to a site and they're reporting energy efficiency. Okay, what's your energy efficiency? How do you get there?
Yeah.
And it's this. You got another plant, and their energy efficiency is a different calculation. You're like, but then you're getting an A+ on your report card, and you're getting a D-, and you're like, well, why? It's because they're using different
calculations.
Correct. So that's also what you have to compare like for like, right? And then I just wanted to show it one of our typical dashboards. So this is from a plant in Dola, which is in Zambia. And this is a typical example. So we had a daily, a weekly, and a monthly dashboard. And this is sort of what it will look like. You've got your different sections: your safety, your environment, your quality, and your performance. Once again, these are zone mandated KPIs that they need to report on. And this speaks to, firstly, are they entering the dates that they should be entering? And just nicely from a snapshot, you can see, am I green? Am I red?
Yeah, just a visual
indicator of where you should be focusing.
And this weekly looks the same for all the sites.
100%. Every single site is the same weekly dashboard.
It's so valuable.
Obviously, you don't spend time discussing the stuff you don't need to discuss in the meeting.
Spot on. And that because you end up with a list of like 400 KPIs. Yeah. How in a half an hour meeting do you even get past the first 10? You just don't. So let's streamline the data. Let's understand what is valuable data. Not all data is valuable. Okay. What data is valuable? And let's discuss those points. And that's what we try to get to. Like right now, you can really see like the standardized packed volume versus planned volume. They obviously aren't producing as much as they should be, right? Easy. We can check it right there. So that's a typical dashboard, right? Now the key thing was we've got all this valuable information at the plants, and we need this up at the zone level where our zone leaders, our heads of packaging throughout the whole of Africa, they can compare these plants like for like on a daily basis. How do we get the data then? How do we get that data? That traditionally it's always been a huge problem for us, because everyone's using Excel sheets. They're all using different Excel sheets. You now got to send the email.
You email the Excel to
Yeah, you email the Excel.
Email the Excel.
No, email the Excel. Yeah, there. And then you're like, no, if I've sent you my results, but which one is it? Is it version 2? Is it version 3, 4?
Yeah.
Underscores, and so people would email this in. And now, unfortunately, your zone heads have to spend 3 days out of a month
just compiling,
just putting all the data together. What a dog show! It was just, it was just not on.
And what a massive window that's opened for human error again. I mean, human
100%.
error, whenever there's any manual anything, there's a big chance of human error.
100%, yeah, exactly.
One of the biggest sinners in our industry.
Yeah, exactly, and not intentionally so, but just unfortunately it just happens. Also, the visibility of all this data, right, was never there before. I mean, because obviously it's all in Excel, and you've got this big spreadsheet. So let's say I was in packaging, and I wanted to know how their energy, how much water they were using. It's not one of my, as a packaging manager, it's not one of my KPIs to know how much water the whole site is using. But I'd like to see which there was no visibility on that. You'd have to walk over and have a chat to the energy and fluids manager, and he'd have to pull up some Excel sheet. So we wanted to get rid of that, and we wanted to make data available and visible as quickly as possible. So step 5 was really, driving the data upwards. So what we did is we created a zonal instance of Flow, and we set up replication or integration from all of the sites across Africa, and so data was being replicated up into this Flow, this Africa Flow instance. And so, bulk replication was configured at each site. So there's like 120,000 measures. That's going to go up soon. We're actually developing some new logistics dashboards. So that's going to bump up to probably about your 160, 170,000 mark. It's big data.
I think when you see the dashboard in the previous slide, I don't think you really get the amount of data that goes up and through.
On the topic of the dashboard, Dylan asked online whether it's possible if there's any drill down capability of the dashboard. So in other words, anything that is read, for example, out of scope, out of measure, if you have any capability to drill down into any of those values and data from the dashboard.
You can, 100%. I don't know if you want to speak to this, Lenny, from a flow perspective. But
yeah, sure. So let's look at that month-to-date value. So obviously that month-to-date value, that 1048 that's right there, if you click on that value, it will actually show you all the values that was utilized to get to that month-to-date value to make up the total for the month. You can also see if it was a calculation, we will actually show you what the calculation was that was used to get to a specific point, and then drill down into the values until we get to the point where it's the raw data that's been retrieved from the data source.
And the second part of Dylan's question is, thanks for the question, Dylan, great one, by the way. He wants to know if you can get that kind of drill down up to the sensor, potentially, that is.
So potentially, currently what we're doing with flows, we do have something that we call a pass-through chart. So the pass-through chart is actually allowing you to chart data that's coming from the historian level. So if that sensor data has been historized in the historian, we will be able to get to a point where we can actually show you the raw data before we as Flow do the calculation or the aggregation on top of that data.
All right. I think Dylan is aiming to understanding how eventually you can get the end-to-end story when it comes to something like maintenance, predictive maintenance. If there was a failure, as a surface at this kind of level, and can you get that connection end-to-end?
Correct. What a lot of people do is they also mix and match historical KPI information with real-time information. The Flow dashboarding is HTML5 compatible. You can embed an iframe or another link to another component into it. So a lot of time what people also do is they take their normal SCADA historian solution, whatever it is, and they actually embed that raw data trending tools right there in the flow environment. Cool. So you've got your actual aggregate, see it's red, why it's red, I've got the actual access to my historian trending tool.
Good question, thanks Dylan. I hope that's a quick answer. Sorry, we disrupted you.
It's what it's about. And so as I was saying,
this is the tiered.
This is really what the tiered approach is about. So you've got your tier 1 service at the bottom and your tier 2 at the top, and all that data within a matter of minutes. Okay, so let me get on to what your problems resolved, right? Okay, so data comes through in the same format, so it's already nicely packaged because your tier 1 flow instances are doing that, and so that nicely packaged data is all standardized. I mentioned the word again, standardized, into your reporting server. So not much ETL needs to be done, in that secondary layer. It's all done for you lower down. ETL, sorry, extract, transform, load.
We use a lot of TLAs.
TLA?
3-letter acronym.
WTF.
WTF, so extract, transform, load, right?
Yes.
It's one of the biggest things that every business needs to do, right? You need to get data from somewhere, you need to package it nicely and codify it, whatever it is, and then load it somewhere else. And the beautiful thing about this is that all of the packaging of your data, the transforming of it is done at tier 1. And so you don't need to do much transforming at your tier 2 layer. And that's what I mentioned. Middle management no longer need to spend hours collating and transforming data. It's right there for them.
Which is not the skill or the capability or the strength or the knowledge or the experience. That's not the best thing for them to do. That actually frees them up to do other things.
Correct. That's not their job. Their job is meant to be as a subject matter expert.
We end up data crunching.
Exactly. They need to be seeing data now and contacting the oaks and saying, listen, Ndola or whoever it is, great job on XYZ, but you guys need to focus on this. Have you implemented this GOP, which is a good operating practice? Have you implemented this to ensure that you improve that number? They don't need to be spending weeks on weeks, transforming data. It's just not what they're meant to do. And then data is replicated to the zone within minutes. Huge. This is I think one of the biggest things is that we've now got these big dashboards that we've put up in everywhere within our supply area. Supply being beer supply, so that all the departments I'm talking about this. So it's not marketing and everything, but supply of beer and production of beer. The big dashboards are available and they're constantly on cycle. So you can see, and let me actually get to that right now. That's an example of one of the dashboards, right? So we have a West Africa VOP, which is a brewing operation unit. Okay, we view every single brewery within West Africa side by side. Once again, apples for apples, right? You're comparing the same KPIs, and you can see right away where your big problems are. Sort of like, okay, so your BTS efficiency at Gateway, which is a plant in Nigeria. It's not where it should be for the week, because it's a weekly report. So it's not where it should be. Okay, cool. So the energy and environment and safety specialist or coordinator immediately see that. No need for number crunching. It's right there. Call them up and say, guys, what's going on? What's happening there? Do you need some assistance? How do we help you get that number better? So it really improves turnaround time on things. Rapidly improves turnaround time.
2 quick things. I know that you've put on some massive screens in your cafeteria.
100%.
That's scroll through these dashboards. So these things are actually visible in the cafeteria at head office where the people sit and eat. And I think that I want to point out is very interesting that you guys extended the model not just to being manufacturing focused. There's safety KPIs in here, there's environmental KPIs. So it really encompassed the capability of manually entering data, getting data from multiple sources to create one single, we spoke about it so many times, but one single version of the truth where all of that data sits. Just interesting to note that fact that it's actually extending the traditional valve we think about energy reporting, production reporting, etc.
But obviously, like safety, right? You're not going to. It's not pulling from a sense in the field, right? It's not like there's a sense that's been how many engineers you have, right? Okay. It's like so. So what's beautiful about Flow, and especially at the tier 1 layers, you can choose this mix and match of manuals, database connections, historian connections. It all collated, and here it looks the same. It looks it's one single unified front. And so, this has helped us a lot, as I mentioned, in turnaround time to resolve issues, the standardization at the lower levels of what people are reporting and how they're reporting it, and it's really become. Lenny, you trained up every single Africa. We had a delegate from all of Africa last year. We brought them out here because this is such a powerful tool, and I'm happy to report that a lot of the guys are using it extensively. They are creating their own dashboards now for their plant needs.
It's a tool, absolutely. But to your point, it's all about the methodology, the approach, the build around it, the model. Tech, it's a tool that enables a process that's making people's lives easier and better decision making.
Correct. So I'll just finish off this with what the future is. So
big data. Oof.
Yeah. So I know I said earlier, right? Okay, and not all data is valuable, but as I also said this, that once you know and once you understand your data, and once you have validated, verified your data, you can get value out of sending it to a like an AI, setup or.
But then again, understanding other problems that you're trying to solve and where the data that you have can help you in solving those problems.
Exactly. But once again, don't. I think I'm also don't try and use data that's not the right data to try and solve a problem just because it's there. If that makes sense, right? Okay, I've got all this data; it's wonderful. Maybe I can use some of this to give me some gains, some efficiencies. No, guys, let's go back to first principles, right? Okay, is this really the data you need? If it's not, well, then let's get the data you need to give you, an improvement there. So, so just to finish off data value through visualization, we have central flow report servers, plenty of that we can utilize. We're looking at using graphical tools because numbers are nice, but when you display them graphically, that's what people resonate with and respond to. Some reds, greens, some little, donut charts and everything. So, Flow admittedly does not seem to be a Power BI or ClickSense, and I'll highlight this because the answer is to post data through maybe from Flow because it has the ability, obviously, to integrate outwards, right?
And importantly, that data is now cleaned.
Yes.
It's in context.
There you go.
It's nice in a nice model.
And
It's
you can
already
repurpose that
standardized.
for in anything else potentially above that.
And the big thing is it's data that is coming from a manufacturing space that we understand. And when we give it to the IT type of tools, it's already contextualized.
100% context and stuff. So
Context is everything.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
And we hand it to them, and they can then go wild with it and use paint or whatever they want. So and then last one is data to cloud with the right data. I emphasize this again. Standard way of posting data. There's an MTT consumer item in Flow, and that's so we heavily looking at doing that.
Another one of the sort of possibly unknown amazing benefits about MQTT and the broker architecture is that MQTT broker can basically inject data from wherever into whatever with the context from source.
Yeah,
which is just absolutely amazing.
And we were actually just as a maybe a bit of insight. So our Dar es Salaam plant is seriously looking at this at the moment. How we get data that is relevant once again, how we get data from Dar es Salaam to a potential AI firm or whatever that's able to utilize that data and then try and help them get efficiencies through their water treatment plant, because the water quality in Derby is so close to the ocean. You get a lot of salinity and a lot of hard materials, a lot of calciums, magnesiums, all the rest in the water, and that wreaks havoc on the water treatment system. And so how do we get external help from serious experts that understand water quality? How do we send them data? Yes. And so we're seriously considering using Flow to try and send this data. Once again, it's standardization around the philosophy and the protocol, which is MQTT, universally accepted. And if someone can't engage with MQTT, well, don't have a chat with them because they don't know what they're on about. So, and that's really cool. I suppose it, guys. Thank you very much. If there's any questions, thank you. That's what
I think we'll summarize. We'll probably take, if it's okay, if you don't mind us sharing the slides. And as part of the closing of this, I think we'll share some of your slides and some of the key points. But I love that. Nice, quick, easy, top 3 things to consider, think about, and implement.
Go for it. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No stresses. Yeah, sure, guys.
All right, so we're moving a little bit into now the product-specific updates.
I was worried about our time.
A little bit worried about the time.
No, it was valuable. I'm not sure if we're gonna be able to cover full demo. Maybe we should do that as a separate session.
I will see what I can do. I just want to show one thing in the demo. All right, so obviously I'm going to cover Flow a little bit, the new release that's imminent. What I want to just focus for the people that doesn't know Flow, obviously from Rowan's chat, Flow is an information platform. We call it the information management platform, and it really is that ETL or that extract, transform, load tool that we can get from all these different sources. We discussed it in the topic, manual data from IoT, sources, as well as our typical OT, the SQL databases and historians. It contextualizes that data. It gives us that single version of the truth where we can standardize, and as well as giving us that capability to track KPIs, very importantly, standardized KPIs that we can manage with our template functionality, and really become this bridge between the OT layer and then the IT systems that can talk about it. Yaku, I think at the end, we're going to talk about our next webinar, the unified platform kind of concept, and Flow definitely plays a big role in that unified framework. And then obviously at the end of the day, it's all about decision support. So we need to be able to give the data to people to make decisions, but the right data in the right context and the right format so that they can make those decisions. Yes, Rowan spoke about obviously from the food and bev kind of environment, but Flow is a universal tool that can be applied to all of the different industries. Also very exciting from the Flow team is that they recently joined the Eclipse Foundation.
Fantastic.
So that means that all three of our products that we've got in our stable, Canary, Ignition, and Flow, as part of the Eclipse Foundation and heavily utilizing the Spark Plug B protocol of MQTT as that open standard to be able to communicate with one another and really create this unified architecture that we're speaking about.
Many others are thinking about the Eclipse Foundation. IBM, I think.
IBM, and there's even a few end users. Chevron, as an example.
I think Viva's joined Eclipse as well.
Correct.
Yeah, a couple of. So I think everybody's catching up.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So last time that we spoke, we kind of alluded to what's coming in Flow. The Flow 4.5, my dyslexia, sorry guys, 5.4.0 version.
I think just drop the 0.0 to 5. If there is a 0.1, then it becomes relevant. Then you can make it 5.1.
So that will be at the end of June, and there's some really cool things that we've added in there. We've added features to connect to InfluxDB, one of those NoSQL kind of databases that we see in the IT space popping up quite a lot.
Definitely. A lot of chatter on InfluxDB.
Definitely.
Just as an aside note, InfluxDB in South America is massive. Huge. They only use InfluxDB. Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay. We enhance our model security. You might have some very delicate or sensitive KPIs that will run cost. That you want people to see the data, so we've enhanced our model security to cater for that. From a usability perspective, Rowan spoke a lot about templates. He spoke about having a template for the measures and the KPIs. We've extended that to the charting as well. All right, and I'll quickly demo a few things around that. And we also obviously just included updates for .NET, and we also have additional retrieval types. In the past, Flow could do as fast as every 5 minutes do an aggregation or a calculation. We've dropped that now that you can have 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, just to get that a little bit. All right, so, and a lot of these things are coming from our customers. So we take our customer feedback very seriously. We try to be the Joneses, not to keep up with them in this space. So we really work very hard to bring in all of these new features in there. So I really just very quickly, I know the time is a bit short, Jakub, but I really want to just demo one scenario within Flow to really make the template or the reporting creation a lot simpler and easier. All right, so I'm going to move here. I've got a little bit of a Flow scenario or model already built. I've got some templates that I've built as well. So for the guys that see me do this demo, you probably see me building the model manually by hand in a lot of my videos. What we're going to promote heavily now with Flow is template first configuration. And there's a few things that we've added to make that very simple. First thing that we've added is we always had model attributes that you can associate attributes of a device serial number or plant location or equipment number to our metrics, but we've kind of extended it to the template functionality, and we're using that to do a lot of cool configurational items. So at any point in time, if I open up this metric for a boiler, I can say, hey, Mr. Boiler, which area of the plant do you belong to? Which piece of equipment are you? What is your equipment number? And the reason why we add these attributes is if I look at my tags that's currently in my historian here, I would really like, if I have that standardization on the OT layer, you'll notice that I've got a very cool equipment number here at the front, 010, 020, 030. That's the only thing that differentiates from boiler 1, 2, 3, and 4, is the number at the front. So why can't I use that number to automatically go and populate my retrieval properties in Flow to automatically get it from my historian? And that's exactly what we do. So you'll notice that I can use these model attributes now in places like in the retrieval section. So I can use that prefix, add it to the front, and Flow will automatically be able to just, when you deploy it, connect to that historian and get that data as well. I can even use that as an example here at the top to define what is the actual name when I instantiate this guy, it's going to give it in the model. All right, so let's do that very quickly. The same thing that we've done for the templates, we are doing for the reporting as well. So I've got a little bit of a report here. Currently, this report is completely blank.
Yep.
You'll notice if I go to my report here, there it is. There's nothing in it. So what I can actually do now is I can go and populate this via my template. So in the past, I had to drag it from the model. What I can actually do now is I can actually go from the template and I can actually say, hey, go and populate my sections based on my boiler templates that I'm going to instantiate and show me the pressure, the steam, and the temperature from that point as well. So I'm configuring the report from the template, not the other way around, not from the actual model that I've already configured. So I've done that. Another cool thing is I can actually use these model attributes in here as well. So this is a comparison table. So I'd like to compare my different plants with one another. So I actually go from here, go to my model attributes and actually pull in, hey, please go and show me the plants first. Then go from a template perspective and show me all the boilers. Right, so I've got that capability and I would like to compare each and every one of these boilers. I would like to compare their efficiency numbers with one another. That's it. All right, so that's all I have to configure on the report. All that's left for me to do is actually instantiate this guy. Right, so I take the plant, drag it into my model here, and now it's going to ask me a whole bunch of things. Right, it's going to ask me what area is this. So this is part of my utilities. All right, equipment. Remember, that is that number that I need to get from the historian. So I know my equipment goes from, I'm just going to do 10 plants for now. So I go 10 to 50. All right, so 10, 20, 30, 50, sorry, 50.
Can I ask just
Yes.
quickly, Lenny, so the actual number was 010.
Correct.
Is that 0 just a space, but you'll not need to type in 010 to 050?
Don't, because what I'm telling it here is to step it 10, 20, 50 by 10, and in the formatting, I can say padded with a 0.
Gotcha.
Okay, perfect. All right, plant, that's going to be plant, that's going to be plant 1 to 5, and again, whoops, 1 to 5, and again, I can pad it with 2 zeros. My plant number, again, 1 to 5, I can go and pad it with 2 zeros there, and I can give it a plant prefix. In this case, again, 1 to 5, and I'm going to give it a prefix here of PL in the formatting, and also change my boiler number 1 to 5. There, again, give it 2 zeros. Perfect. All right, so if I look at the preview here, it will tell me how many plants I'm going to instantiate with then the number.
This preview is a winner. Yes,
and obviously I want 5 of them, right? So if I press the preview now, it's going to redo it and automatically populate. If I do 6, obviously I didn't specify 6 of them. So if I do 6, it will just tell me, hey, there's something wrong, it's going to create a copy. Okay, so that's obviously wrong. Let's do that. Hit the preview, press continue, and I am going to instantiate all 5 of my plants, deploy them out, and it's going to go and build my model for me. All right, so let's deploy these guys. And because I used the template from a reporting perspective, if I refresh this guy, it's going to take all of that into consideration and automatically add the different plants, all the different sections for all of those boilers that I've created. Flow's already populating it in the back end, and as the data gets deployed, it will start filling it out.
Very nice. Very
Cool. All right.
Nice feature.
So
How do I push that report template down?
All right, so exactly the same as what we have. We're going to have the capability to configure a template server, and that report is now going to be a reporting server. We also included copy paste, so you can copy and paste from 2 different flow instances as well.
Okay, all right, okay. And if you've got a scenario where we've got a template server,
that's going to serve that purpose. Cool. Other thing very quickly, as we mentioned, InfluxDB. So we've created an InfluxDB data source, so we can obviously browse that namespace from Influx, get the different tags that's configured. I've got a little Influx here. There's the data in Influx. Influx got the standard of being able to add filters and tags and field devices to that, or you can have the capability to write your own kind of scripts within Influx, depending on what you want to filter and how you want to do it. We cater for both of that in Flow. So I've got in my model here Influx tags that I've already created. So we will pull that data from Influx, and you can then have a decision on what the tags is that you want to configure. So here I've got the tags either being available in the drop down, or for the guys that's hardcore and they want to build their own scripts,
Cool.
you can go and pretty much write your own influx query scripts as well. And yeah, Flow will be able to populate that. And if I go to my little influx DB dashboard here, here's the data that we pulled from influx, aggregated, and then inside of Flow, if I click. And again, this one I've utilized our new 1 minutely aggregation buckets. So we've got that minutely data available inside of the Flow reporting as well. Cool. So that is pretty much the aggregate of that data in a 1 minutely bucket pulled from Influx. Cool. I know we're running a bit out of time, so that's unfortunately all I can demo for the new versions for now. But we'll share a little bit more in-depth demo that the
I think
Flow
we'll do
team
detailed
done
ones.
as well.
And sort of expected release there?
End of June.
End of June.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Cool. Good stuff. Looking forward to it.
Other thing that also came out from the Flow side is we had our OEE KPI series that we had. That video is now live on the Flow website. We also configured and created a whole bunch of how-to guides. This is something new that we will promote from Element 8 side. Big thing for us is obviously security. So we've created a guide on how to bind certificates to Flow if you want to use SSL communication between the Flow components. We created a guide on how to filter out bad attribute values by utilizing nice custom expressions. And we also created a guide, just get this quite a lot, people migrating to new server architectures, moving Flow DBs across, etc. And what is the process of actually doing that as well.
That's helpful. By the way, if you are concerned that you missed something, we are recording the session and we will share the recording afterwards, as well as links to all the relevant docs and things that we're talking about.
Perfect. All right, and with that, I'm going to hand over to Laura.
Christoph, thank you. Laura, what's happening in the world of Canary?
Yeah. And I please have this. Thank you very much. Okay, so for all the Canary lovers out there, I will be talking about our how-to guides. Just like Lenny explained, a little bit of the 21.2 features. And
that's the latest version.
Yes, the latest version. And then the newest Canary community. So starting off with our tech notes or our how-to guides. So as you can see, we have actually created a lot of them for Canary specifically. They are a few guides on how to utilize Canary to its full potential, of course. So we have 5 for Canary so far that you can find in our on our website under our how-tos resource tab. And you can actually find all of the tech notes for Canary, Ignition, and Flow there.
Okay.
Yeah, all of them.
And obviously, just quick on this, if you've got any ideas for tech notes or something that you're struggling with,
Yes,
please email us at support@element8. A lot of these tech notes are driven from things that we do see a lot on tech support, so hopefully this will make the lives easier for our users.
Yes.
These are pretty much the ones we thought would be most practical and most useful.
Yeah, so these are specifically ones that a lot of people have asked us about and logged support tickets. So I know some of them look fairly easy, but like, for example, let's take licensing the Canary system or even, connecting to an OPC UADA server. That's usually for the newer users that would like a very quick how-to.
It's not complicated, but there's a couple of steps.
There's a couple of steps. And it's very nice. We have a lot of screenshots, step-by-step guides, explanations, definitions.
I like the
URLs.
data trends in WinCC. That's quite a requested one. Eh?
So that is the newest one. That's nice. So what we do is we just show you how to create, actually drag in your Canary data trends into a WinCC project.
Fantastic.
Yeah, in the graphic design. So if you maybe want to check it out, please feel free.
Fantastic.
So I'm not going to hammer too much on that because
Let me just ask you one quick question. With those links to all the how-to guides,
Yeah.
if you get a new version of Canary, right, are you going to update those specific ones,
Yeah.
or
If
am I
it's
gonna
necessary,
end up with-
absolutely.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
okay.
So you'll notice that we, for all of the how-to guides, we versioned them.
Okay, all
And
right.
with an update version, obviously, and date.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So most of these have, it stays the same from a few versions back as well. Not on how to license it or whatever. But if they
That's
do
very
update,
relevant. Otherwise, you want to make sure that when you use a how-to guide, that it's the latest.
I think the key thing is you send out a link to people and you're like, this is how you do it. Then they upgrade 3 times and they go to the link and it's pointless.
yeah, it doesn't work anymore. Yeah, so that's the whole idea, is to keep people updated constantly. And then we have our new Canary system 21.2 that was released in May, and of course it's currently available. We have a lot of new features.
Wow.
Canary has a lot of new features. I'm just going to talk about a little bit. Let's say there's an addition of a new data entry control for simple manual data entry and a bar chart control for quickly creating aggregated data, bar charts in Axiom, which is nice. They have an addition of a rotation property on a label control in Axiom, the addition of inactive timeout info to URL parameters.
That's important.
Which is great.
People leave their browsers open, consume the license, obviously you want it to release. So timeout session.
Yeah, those are very nice.
Yeah,
And
that was
then-
also a requested feature. Yeah.
Then there's the addition of tag properties, views, asset types, asset instances, and asset tag tables in the ODBC connector. Yeah, there's a lot more, sure, but I'm going to ask you guys to please go and read up on it. I'll provide the link in the next slide. Then for usability, we have improved handling of duplicate certificate errors when loading needed certificate added to several services in our admin tool. We have improved efficiency when we are starting or stopping a large number of calculations in the calculation server. And then they have added multiple abilities to the existing data collectors.
Yeah.
Like I know there's for every single data collector, there's something new. For example, the ability to store manual data entries like metadata in our sender and receiver, for example. Yeah.
And of course, Canary also part of Eclipse Foundation, part of the
Yes.
Tahu working group with Smart.b.
Yeah.
So NQTT also becoming a very popular collector.
Yeah, and then some of the fixes is like deleting last connection groups that crash the admin if more than 3 groups were deleted at a time. Yeah, the calculator trends could have caused issues with the Valve, Delta, and Zoom cursors, so that has been fixed. And too many threads were being created when too many calculations were being backfilled simultaneously. Like I said, there is so
update.
much more.
And
So-
the availability of the upgrade, there we go.
Yes, guys, you can please go and read up on the documentation and the release notes. And we also recommend, like we say, you guys check it up every single month because there are new things that is valuable. And then lastly, our Canary Lab. So they have created this amazing friendly online help guide called our Canary Community. So this was created with the sole purpose for users to ask questions, solve problems, provide feedback, and then users can also actually connect with the Canary team members themselves. So no more emailing support tickets. You can just open a support ticket on the support center and then also check your status there as well.
And they're also moving the knowledge base into this as well.
Oh,
So
yes, that's awesome.
amazing.
So you'll see we have a feedback form, knowledge base, Learn Canary, and version info options there at the top. So the feedback is everything where you can log bugs and issues, discuss enhancements, and you can also request any new ideas that you have for future features that you would like to tell them about. Forum enables you to share screenshots of your Axiom dashboards as well if you're really a show off and you would like to show them what you can do. And then the knowledge base, like Lenny said, it includes everything from the quick start guide, the system admin duties, and also all of the client tools are discussed in detail there.
Amazing. It'll be nice to see some of the South African people get onto
Yeah,
the community. It's such a valuable and proactive community, very similar to Inductive, Ignition's community.
Yeah.
Very often when you post a question, for example, you get a reply within less than an hour. And very often it's not from Inductive Automation. It's actually from another system integrator or another user elsewhere. So these communities are very valuable.
Yeah, and what's nice is what I like about the Learn Canary, as everyone know, they have the Canary Academy, but in the Learn Canary, they actually added training webinars, Canary Bootcamp material, as well as the Canary Academy. So there's a lot more resources there. And then version info, like we said, that's where you can find pretty much everything.
Join the
All
community,
newest
have a look at
versions.
the latest tech notes,
Yes.
read up on the latest release.
Yes, please. And
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Cool, thanks a lot.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Laura. I am going to, if I get this to change, have a quick chat to you about your Ignition Howto Guides pricing, as well as the new features coming up in 8.16, or now called 8.17. I'll explain that. And our new exchange resource, right? Okay, so what I wanted to touch on is how to spec your server. So this is a question, or your device. This is a question that we often find issues around because maybe a server was overspec or underspec. Overspecking is mostly not a problem. Underspecking is usually the problem. By default, we have three kind of specking groups, which is your smaller one, which would be your ARM type of devices, your Raspberry Pis. Then could have your one, your that usually you would spec it your gateway with 1 gigs of RAM, up to 4 gigs of RAM, depending on how much you have, right, or how much how much resources you have. So usually that will range from one connecting to 2 devices. So that's the kind of device you would want to use an ARM for, or an ARM architecture for, right? And then your default usually would be your medium, which ranges from a PC that has or a server that has 4 cores up to 4 cores at 3 gigahertz. Up to 4 cores at 4 gigahertz.
Still very light.
Yeah, very light, very light. And the difference being obviously how much, how big your deployment is. And then lastly, we would have your large enterprise type deployment, where you would have your 8 cores to 16 cores, and with 32 gigs of RAM. All of them we recommend you run on SSDs. You can see clearly there is no HDD, so please don't do that to yourself.
So Tina, maybe this is your summary of the processor types, architectures, but the guide itself actually talks through the steps, the descriptors.
Yeah, so the guide includes obviously how do they get to medium and large. So what is the tag count? What is the client count? What is the device count? Obviously, the ARM-based stuff we will utilize for Ignition Edge, right? So that's for the HMI and more IoT kind of applications. But yes, the guide is very helpful determining what the resources is that you use.
Yes.
And there's another guide for historian.
Yes, for your historian, which is something that's neglected because we've sorted out the gate when we think the historian is happy. Remember, coming back, your historian, you have a choice to use any SQL historian, as long as it's standard SQL. So that could be your Microsoft SQL, the standard, or the MySQL server. And usually, a small deployment would look like 2 cores, 2 gigabytes of memory, and that would work best for 0 to 100 value changes per second. So that's the kind of performance you would expect, and up to obviously spec up double the RAM, and you would have up to 500 values per second that you could process, right? And then we could have your medium. We recommend that you use 4 cores, 4 gigs, and that will give you between 500 and 2,500 value changes per second in performance. Obviously, if you then need to spec up without needing to go to the higher or spec server, or you're still in your medium deployment, you could then bump the memory to 8 gigs, and then that would give you up to 5,000 value changes per second. Something I want to highlight is that depends also on your historian. So the value that depends on the tuning of the historian that you're using. So if you're using MySQL, for example, with tuning, you could get it up to 10,000.
Okay.
10,000. So you have some leeway depending on how you set up, but typically the Microsoft SQL will give you up to 30,000. So depending on what your capabilities are, obviously, you could have and your resources for the SQL tuning, basically.
So outside of the hardware, the setup and the setup and the configuration is obviously
yes.
That's
so
also in the guide, I think.
Yes.
And there's also benchmarking against the different SQL technologies. They're not all equal, as Terry mentioned, so it depends if you're using Postgre, MySQL.
Equal,
So that benchmarking is also in the guide.
Cool. Yes.
Guide.
Okay, and what we all came here for. What's new in the latest release, which is 817. If you have already bit the bullet and installed, you might have seen you had the option to download 816, which is 817. That was just rescinded to because of bug fixes, but they have been fixed, and now the official download is the 0.7 release. Okay, so in that release, we have some few features that have been added. We have schedule scripting now. We have perspective updates. So there's lots of updates coming to perspective. So in terms of your performance as well. And then OPC drivers, OPC UA drivers now come with diagnostics. So you can tell you have a few tags that tell you what's happening with the OPC driver itself, so you can keep track of that, right? We do have a few more changes in terms of the usability or what the developers and end users are looking at. So new icon UI for managing your icons, obviously, makes it easier for you, creature comfort. We do have improved speed in the identity provider. So on authentication, so if you've logged in before, it will not take as long to log in again. We also have some changes in our gateway auditing. Our OPC UA fixes as well. We have changes in terms of how the parsing works in OPC. And then we also fix the major issue with our upgrade. So when customers would upgrade from 7.9 to 8.1, we would have issues with the tag import XML that has been fixed. And we have lots and lots of changes in terms of the web visualization. So this would be your perspective. Web visualization fixes, which now we have touchscreen support as well. So if that's something you've been waiting for, now we have it for you. In terms of those guys who are using the 7.9 release, the last LTS will be 7.9.18. So be on the lookout for that. So if you, after that point, you would have to then go to your 8.1 release.
Cool. So LTS is obviously the long-term support.
Yes.
7.9 was the previous or the last. 8.1 is the most current.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the last maintenance release, so it doesn't mean that it will still be supported from a tech support perspective, but there will be no more development done on 7.9. So yeah, at some point you probably just need to think about your upgrade strategies to 8.1.
And famously, Inductive Automation, ton of regular updates.
Yeah.
In fact, it's probably the only company that I'm aware of in our industry that actually has a nightly version that you can download, which is the work done to date by the devs for that day. It's absolutely phenomenal. You can play around with the latest version that was pressed to save by some developer somewhere.
Yeah, in fact, there's an 8.18 release that's the nightly
That's
release that's
amazing. They
available.
really crank them out.
Yeah.
Jeez, okay.
Okay. And in terms of what we have for you, your Howto Guides, we have a tech note for you for actually sending your alarm notification through Telegram.
Yes.
Telegram, for those of you who do not know, is basically what you would be the competitor to your WhatsApp.
That's what everybody wanted to use when WhatsApp were going to share all the information with everyone.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I felt for
never
and ended up using.
No, I don't think they actually have to use it.
Yeah.
Because
But-
Elon Musk said so.
We go where the change is. Okay, so
This is
the good
very
thing
useful.
about this,
Very useful.
the good thing about this, obviously, it's on your phone, secure, and a familiar interface, just like your WhatsApp. So you can read up on that tech note on our website as well. And our pricing, Lenny, if you can give us a click there. I don't know if we have the time. There we go. So these are our basic, our three main packages for our ignition, right? We have our basic, which will have, as usual, the standard unlimited tags, unlimited your historian, as well as your core modules that come, or core drivers that come with ignition, right? And then we have our ignition pro, which adds to what we have on the ignition basic. And then in this case, we're going to add the reporting module, as well as SQL bridge, as well as the alarming notification. And as well, now on our unlimited would basically be pro with the rest of the SMS and voice notification services, your sequential charts,
module.
yeah. And we have our OPC, DA, and HDA modules coming standard with that as well.
So the reason we designed this is we obviously the pricing is public, it's
Yes,
visible
yes.
on the website, but it's in dollars. So we wanted to create a local version of RAND version of that view, starting with the packages. And the packages you'll see is all obviously unlimited clients, unlimited tags, unlimited designers, unlimited connections. It's just grouped nicely together in terms of typical modules used.
Yes.
in the first place.
And then if you feel like those packages don't work quite well for you, you can actually build on top of or build your own package depending on your needs. We have the platform, which would be the basic, would have the unlimited tags, unlimited designer clients, and your default drivers
All
that
the
come
drivers.
with that come with the IA managed. Those are the IA managed drivers, right?
Cool.
And on top of that, you could then go and individually pick and choose your modules that you want to add on top, building your own custom solution instead of going with the packages.
Let us know if this is useful. This is a request we had to get just a quick snapshot of rand sort of pricing. It is obviously based on a rate of exchange of 14 rand to the dollar. But yeah, hopefully this is useful to give you a quick idea of if you're trying to price a project or a specific site.
Yeah. Okay. And last but not least, our updates and documents, right? We have our documentation that's available on our website. Once you have the slide, you'll be able to click on those links. You'll see there's underlining on those, so that it will point you to the relevant documentation. But I wanted to highlight our Ignition Exchange. If you, let me go ahead there. From here, we have a community where they are basically different modules, different resources you can download and import into your Ignition projects for use, right? For example, we have the IMF sensor UDT and perspective template.
That's really cool.
Yes,
That's really
yes.
cool. That's the IOLink.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with what IOLink is, by the way,
Mm.
you need to be.
Yeah. Speaking about MQTT and all that, IOLink again, a great open protocol. Again, a little bit lower down on the sensor level.
Yes.
They've created these UDTs and templates to actually query the data with the IOLink protocol. The resources there, it's for free, download it from the exchange, pull it into your
Amazing.
project, and you literally can have an IFM sensor data
Templates and UDTs within perspective
minutes
already. Amazing.
with that. Also, one thing we also want to just highlight is obviously the Siemens Open Library objects.
Yeah, it's also biggie.
A biggie for us. So that will work with your Siemens Open Library objects in the PLC. Again, you can go and download it, have a look at it, make changes if you want to, but it's a very good starting point for those objects as well.
And bring in your...
We really would like you guys to look at the exchange regularly. There's some great features and stuff that get
Is it
resources.
155 that's been added now? Projects? Or
Yeah.
155? That's incredible.
Yes.
155
Started
projects.
with a handful.
Correct.
Amazing.
Cool. And that is it from me.
Cool.
If you have
Okay.
questions, you
Thank
can
you.
always post them in the chat.
Absolutely. Let us know if there's any questions on any of the Ignition updates. Right, then just to close it off, I know we are way over time. I hope it was valuable at least. If you're going to look at the next time that we're going to get together, or way to engage with us, or way to speak to us, or where we can help you, here are a couple of things. We alluded to some of the work that's been done at Brewery of the Future.
Yeah.
If you haven't listened to the podcast with Chris Clark from AB InBev yet, very philosophical kind of a podcast, but just a really great chat about the value of people, I suppose, and how to empower people as part of your operations. And Chris talks through some of the work that AB InBev has done around that notion or that concept of building out your business around those key people. Really great podcast with Chris. Then we spoke about the IoT certification that is done through Cirrus Link. You will learn all about MQTT, all about the value of edge to enterprise data, data ops, all of the keywords around IoT you'll learn as part of that certification. We'll send you the link for that one as well. Please don't forget about the training. It is classroom based, but you could also attend it virtually. We always prefer to meet with you face to face, but obviously given some of the precaution around COVID at the moment, we do also host them virtually. We'll just share a couple of dates for the upcoming courses. And then 2 webinars that will be potentially valuable to you, hopefully the first one is choosing a SCADA system for the IIoT era. That is not us presenting that one. That is an inductive automation one on Wednesday, the 30th of June. They talk about through some of the considerations and things to keep in mind when designing and choosing a software or a tool set for IoT, but SCADA specific. And then the one that Lenny and I will talk through with a guest, which we still have to get confirmation on Thursday, the end of July, 29th of July, is Where's My Data? Data Ops in the Unified Namespace. Talk a little bit about what also Rowan alluded to earlier, is what is the unified namespace? Is it a thing? Is it an idea? Is it a notion? Is it a product? Is it a DVD that somebody drops with you? No, it's not. But why is the unified namespace so important in terms of bridging that IT-OT gap? So that's a couple of things that you can look forward to over the next little while. If you're still with us, you haven't gone to sleep or jumped off or passed out, thank you very much for listening. We hope it was informative. And we have time for some questions for those that are still online. I think we have a question from Dylan. Dylan wanted to know, would Ignition be a good choice for linking Siemens PLC data to SAP ERP system? Client wants to automate maintenance work orders and confirmation of maintenance actually carried out end to end. So yes.
So yes, definitely. There is business connectors that's available. Ignition also has the capability to post, obviously, data through a post or a put request into a web request if that's the requirement. One thing we just need to remember is, well, what type of data do we need to push to ERP? Is it the raw data, or do we need to contextualize that data before sending it to an ERP?
Yeah,
Is it the running hours for the week or the running hours for the month? If we think about proactive maintenance, maybe from a scheduling perspective, so just be cognizant of what we need to send. Potentially, there's an aggregation layer that needs to happen. But yeah, there's business connector tools. There's one that's for SAP that comes from the Sepasoft stable, obviously, that integrates with the tag within Ignition. So definitely it can integrate to the ERP's world.
Definitely. Good question, Dylan. Thank you. And I think there's also maybe another potential discussion around if you're already, for example, using, I don't know, WinCC, PCS7, there's obviously some considerations there. You wouldn't necessarily have to rip and replace to do that.
Correct.
Mutually or in parallel with what you're already doing from a control perspective. You could very easily just put Ignition on top of that layer.
Just for that functionality. Yep.
Good question. Dylan's on fire today. I think we need to send Dylan some donuts.
Cool.
Cool. If there's no other questions, obviously you're welcome to send us any questions that you have on email when we share the link to the presentation, as well as all the other bits. But thank you very much for joining us. You could have been doing 100 other things, but you spent the time with us, so thank you for that. Thank you to Laura for the update on Canary, Tebe, Ignition, Lenny, Flow. Really exciting stuff on the way. And Rowan, as always, it's awesome always chatting with you.
What a privilege.
I know it's not always easy to get your time because you're typically all over the country and all over the continent. But always amazing to get your insights and feedback and some of the really good work that you and the team are doing at AB InBev. Some groundbreaking stuff. So thank you for that.
Thanks for that.
Cool. That's it.
That's it.
Thank you very much. We'll share the presentation. Thank you for your time, and we will see you, if not on the 29th of July, we will see you at the end of August.
Perfect.
End of September, sorry. End of September for our next quarterly update. Thank you very much.
Right. Cheers, everybody.
Bye-bye.